Trump is shipping them to Guantanamo, by Al Waisman for freedomdaily.com. Now, this is really a great way to start the new year, where we are getting reports that President Donald Trump has ordered the military staff at Guantanamo Bay prison to prepare for multiple incoming high-level prisoners in the coming months, some of which are said to include American politicians. Happy days! According to leaked intel, President Trump is preparing to transfer a large number of VIP American detainees to the notorious prison in preparation for their trials before a U.S. military tribunal for corruption and crimes against the state. If this indeed is the case, then people linked to the now infamous Uranium One deal when crooked Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State are now being placed in custody as we speak in preparation for the historical trials. Via your newswire, President Trump orders Guantanamo Bay to prepare for high-level prisoners. President Trump has ordered Guantanamo Bay to prepare for incoming high-level prisoners, including American politicians, within the next few months. According to a Military of Defense report, Trump is preparing to transfer an unknown number of VIP American detainees to the notorious prison in preparation for their trials before a U.S. military tribunal. Reports suggest that people connected to the Uranium One scandal are being placed in custody in preparation for the trials. Hundreds of U.S. Army military police have also been deployed to Cuba to help oversee the process. According to the DoD report, while conducting routine training missions in Cuba, intercepted an unusually large number of encrypted communications emanating between the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base, Cuba, and Luke Air Force Base, Arizona, immediately after which they made a request to SVR counterintelligence analysts for an explanation of, with the SVR in turn then reporting to SCT that these communications were being conducted between the Guantanamo Military Commission that holds U.S. military tribunals and U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions. On April 11, 2017 also, this report says that the SVR reported to SCT that Attorney General Sessions was at Luke Air Force Base to hold/conduct meetings with various commanders of the Arizona Army National Guard, with the longest of them being with the commanders of the 850th Military Police Battalion, that numbers nearly 800 highly trained and specialized U.S. Army military police forces. Since its beginning on April 11, 2017, this report continues. SCT intercepts of communications between Guantanamo Bay Naval Base and Luke Air Force Base continued on an unprecedented basis, with the largest amount of such communications being reported on July 7, 2017, and was the date Attorney General Sessions and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein made an unannounced visit to the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base, all whose meetings there on that date included the commanders of the 850th Military Police Battalion, who had been flown there the day prior. The specific type of communication intercepts noted by SCT occurring between Guantanamo Bay Naval Base and Luke Air Force Base, this report details, were encrypted video satellites broadcast transmitted at the North American Standard Rate of 59.94 frames per second, and whose near predictable times of transmission suggested to SVR analysts that these video broadcasts were being used for classroom instruction. On December 21st, 2017, this report further notes SCT reported that nearly all of these communications between Guantanamo Bay Naval Base and Luke Air Force Base have ceased, with the SVR reporting that this cessation occurred when U.S. Defense Secretary James Mad Dog Mattis made an unprecedented and unannounced visit to Guantanamo, the first visit there by a U.S. Defense Secretary in nearly 16 years, and that in doing, Secretary Mattis shockingly broke with the long-standing tradition of persons holding his high office visiting American troops on the front lines, but that he deemed his sudden visit to Guantanamo as vitally more important than. And as to how vitally important, Secretary Mattis deemed his unprecedented visit to Guantanamo, this report said, became known yesterday, the 29th of September 2017, when President Trump suddenly ordered the entire 850th Military Police Battalion to immediately deploy from Luke Air Force Base to Guantanamo Bay Naval Base. With the Guantanamo Bay detention camp holding only 41 detainees, but able to hold nearly 800, this report notes President Trump suddenly ordering there such a large number of U.S. military police forces requires a further explanation as to why, and which the SVR says can be found in the equally sudden activity of the secretive IBC Airways, and whom, upon President Trump's ordering the 850th Military Police Battalion to immediately deploy to Guantanamo, announced on the 29th of December 2017, that it is increasing its flights to Naval Station Guantanamo Bay to 3 times a week, thus highly suggesting its anticipation of a flood of visitors there, most likely to include American attorneys defending their soon-to-be imprisoned traitorous clients. To the likelihood of President Trump actually imprisoning his deep state enemies who are currently engaged in a coup against him, General Staff Deputy Defense Minister Tatiana Shevtsova in this report lays out the trial that Trump's been following since he first took office, and whose clues can be found in his extreme vetting immigration plan, the long history of which his enemies have ignored to their peril. Though not known to the American people, this report explains deep state-aligned leftist U.S. federal judges have been battling Trump over his extreme vetting plan since the very week he took office, the first week, with their reason being because Trump has asserted his power to act based upon one of the most controversial and least understood laws in the history of the United States, that's known as McCarran Act, or Internal Security Act of 1950, that allows for the detention of dangerous, disloyal, or subversive persons in times of war or internal security emergency. As founding FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover had warned the U.S. Congress in the late 1940s that it only took 23 commies to overthrow Russia. This report continues. The Internal Security Act of 1950 was enacted into law in order to protect the American president and government from an internal coup like the one Trump is now facing, and that President Trump on the 21st of December 2017, the exact same day Secretary Mattis made his sudden visit to Guantanamo, enacted the first phase of his signing an executive order declaring that America indeed was now in a state of national emergency, with this exactly naming two the Hillary Clinton-linked persons seeking to overthrow the U.S. government. Mostly unknown to the American people, when President Trump arrests and detains 4 U.S. military tribunal trials in Guantanamo, these deep state coup plotters, this report further notes, is that it was actually President Barack Obama who in 2012 signed this presidential power into law with the feared National Defense Authorization Act. And that authorizes the indefinite military detention without charge or trial of any person labeled a belligerent, quote, including an American citizen. Equally unknown to the vast majority of the American people, too, this report concludes, is that the current deep state coup plot against President Trump is not the first one their nation has faced either, but is in fact its second, with the first being in 1933 when the deep state launched the business plot coup against President Franklin Roosevelt in order so they could join the United States with the globalist power Nazi Germany, with this coup plot being led by the Nazi-aligned Bush family. But this coup being destroyed by U.S. Marine General Smedley Butler, whose mighty shoes U.S. Marine General James Mad Dog Mattis now stands in so that he too might save this nation. Along with the added staff, hundreds of U.S. Army military police are also being deployed to Cuba to help oversee the process of locking up the swamp. There have been strange goings-ons in Guantanamo Bay this past few months. This includes Secretary Mattis's unprecedented visit to Guantanamo prison earlier this year. This report became known on December 29, 2017, when President Trump, out of nowhere, ordered the entire 850th Military Police Battalion to immediately deploy from Luke Air Force Base to Guantanamo Bay Naval Base. Wouldn't it be an awesome sight to see the Clintons in Guantanamo Bay? Maybe they can all just stay there permanently and take all their corrupt friends with them. It would be an epic way to clean the swamp and stop this awful corruption, which we have been dealing with since the 90s, and it would go a long way in restoring our faith in our justice system, which seems to rain down hard on the poor and powerless, but it will never touch you if you are rich and powerful. Please share if you want to see the whole swamp behind bars. And it's funny because, like, Obama had set this up for the belligerent, including an American citizen, and this is all going to turn back on him. You know, like he was plotting, that's why they were talking about where he would declare a national emergency and take control of everything and put people into FEMA camps. You know, this whole thing seems now to be turning back on him, and it could be them that are going to be put in there, and it stems back to the Bushes. You see where I'm saying? Since the 90s, that's why they're talking about this. And this could be taking place very, very soon. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.